Saturn wears its beauty openly, with ring made of ice dust and rock turning in silence beyond the sun. But here the Earth is bare, no shining halo, no band of stone, only cloud and blue. Why does one wear a ring while ours does not imagine just for a moment that Earth did? A luminous belt stretched across the heavens, silver at midnight, gold at dawn, reshaping our nights, our seasons, the way we live. Cities would glow beneath a permanent horizon of light. Oceans would breathe to a different rhythm. And some scientists think it nearly happened, that long ago a wandering planet struck the young Earth, flinging molten debris into orbit, a first halo of fire and dust. To understand what that ring would look like and why it did not last, let us go back to the beginning. Let us watch the impact and follow the fragments into orbit. Then step by step, let us see how much a ring could change our world and how our sky remains clean and open tonight. We begin far back, more than 4.5 billion years ago, when the young Earth is not yet calm. The air is fire. The oceans are vapor. Space around us is crowded with fragments that will one day become worlds. Now place yourself on that horizon, not on firm ground, but on a molten plane glowing orange like metal in a forge. Above a sphere about the size of Mars drifts closer. Theia, a wandering planetary embryo. You can feel the sky tighten. The planet holds its breath. The impact that follows is not a single blast. It is a merging. For a moment, Earth becomes two worlds colliding in near silence. Rock turns to liquid. Mountains dissolve into light. From that meeting, a halo of debris rises, molten stone arcing into orbit, settling into a storm that circles roughly 15,000 kilometers above the glowing planet. Think of it as the first ring of Earth, brief but astonishing. Gravity gathers the fragments. Tides stretch them apart again. Collapse and dispersal trade places like waves. The mechanics are simple to state, difficult to live through. When two massive bodies meet, their momentum must be conserved. The result is a disk, a thin plane where particles settle around the equator. The same rule shapes Saturn's rings today, only there the debris is icy and bright. Here it is rock, dark and hot. If we measure that orbit now, it lies well within Earth's roche. Limit a boundary, where gravity becomes a knife, tearing apart anything that strays too close. In that zone, fragments cannot combine into a lasting moon. They remain a veil of stones and vapor endlessly colliding. Hold the scene a moment. Picture a faint ring shining against a sky of steam. Each fragment spins faster than any bullet, several kilometers per second, scattering sunlight into the newborn atmosphere like sparks from a grinding wheel. The energy released by the collision is staggering, about 10 to the power of 29 joules, enough heat to melt a crust and melt it again. Yet from chaos, geometry emerges, circles, symmetry, rhythm. Most of that debris will gather into a single companion, the moon, but for a time a veil truly encircles our planet, an ornament of fire and dust. If we could stand on a primitive shore, if such a shore existed, we would see the horizon split by light, a steady line that does not set. We step back from the glare. The ring remains above us, thin, restless, precise. Now that the dust is settled, let us step closer into the orbit itself, where the laws of motion become sculptors of form. The chaos of impact has quieted, but its echoes still drift above us, tracing circles of light through the vacuum. Look just above the equator, between 1,000 and 15,000 kilometers from the surface. This is the ring zone, the cradle of equilibrium. Here, fragments once born from collision begin to find their rhythm. They neither fall nor flee. Instead, they hover in a delicate compromise between speed and gravity. Each grain is a tiny moon, an island of matter in perfect negotiation with the planet's pull. This is where the Roche limit reveals its quiet authority. It is not a barrier, but a threshold. If a fragment drifts inward closer than roughly 15,000 kilometers, Earth's gravity tears it apart. If it drifts outward, gravity weakens and fragments can coalesce into miniature moons. Within the boundary, matter remains a cloud of rock and dust, too close to unite, too heavy to escape. You can think of it as a tide frozen in motion, an ocean that never moves its waves, forever suspended in orbit. Now imagine standing at the edge of that invisible sea. Beneath you, the planet turns once every 24 hours, but here in the ring, a single grain completes its orbit in just about 2.5 hours. That means each particle circles Earth almost 10 times during every day below. Collisions between them flatten the swarm into a thin, gleaming disk, no thicker than the skyline of a great city, but wider than the span between New York and Tokyo. To understand why it stays flat, we must listen to the dialogue between rotation and inertia. Every grain carries angular momentum, its stubborn wish to move straight, while gravity bends it into a circle. When fragments collide, their vertical motion cancels out, leaving only the calm balanced sheet we call a ring plane. It is the same symmetry that shapes the elegant belts of Saturn, Uranus, and even the distant dwarf planet Quaoar, whose icy rings defy conventional rules. Now picture the ring from space, a luminous belt wrapped around Earth's waist, bright, where sunlight touches dark where the planet's shadow passes. From the ground, it would appear as a radiant horizon stretching endlessly from east to west, a mirror of Earth's own rotation. This is not only beauty, it is mathematics made visible. And as we drift outward beyond the Roche boundary, one question lingers in the silence. What would it feel like to live beneath such a sky? To answer, we must descend again to the surface, where humanity will one day look up and name that halo as its own. Let us hover for a moment within that thin and ghostly ring of debris. Around us drift shards of silicate rock, flecks of cooled magma, and ribbons of metallic dust, the lingering remains of Earth's first great wound. The silence here is absolute, broken only by the slow ballet of fragments sliding past one another in endless orbit. Because Earth lies far closer to the Sun than Saturn does, these rings would not be made of ice. They would be darker, rougher, shimmering like powdered stone beneath the flood of sunlight. Each fragment reflects only about 10% of the light it receives, what astronomers call an albedo of 0.1. Yet when millions of particles scatter that light together, they would cast back an energy close to 130 watts per square meter, at the top of the atmosphere, like placing a glowing bulb above every square meter of the sky. From the surface, the radiance would shift through the day, white at dawn, golden at noon, then amber at dusk as the sunlight bends through the haze. You could tell the hour by the hue of the heavens. Here light becomes memory, reflected, refracted, reborn in orbit. And as the planet cools beneath the newborn ring, begins to whisper its first illusion that even destruction can give birth to beauty. The night has cooled. The fires of creation have faded to embers, and the surface of Earth has at last hardened into continents and oceans. Yet high above the faint ring still circles in silence, a ghostly reminder of the violence that once made the planet whole. From that ancient memory we return now to the present world. The molten sphere has turned blue, the seas shimmer with reflected light. But imagine just for a moment that the ring has remained. What would it look like standing beneath such a sky today? Picture yourself on the equator, where the air is heavy and the horizon draws a perfect line between day and night. The sun has just slipped below the western sea. Overhead, a single band of light cuts across the twilight. It does not drift with the stars. It does not fade. It simply hangs there, steady, luminous, as though someone had etched a glowing scar across the heavens. This is how the ring of Earth would appear from the equatorial belt, not an arc, not a circle, but a blade of brilliance stretching from east to west. At its core, trillions of fragments orbit between 1,000 and 15,000 kilometers above you. Each grain a speck of ancient rock races around the planet at nearly 8 kilometers per second, so fast it could cross the distance from Cairo to Paris in less than 10 minutes. You could watch the shadow of Earth drift across the ring each evening, beginning at one horizon and sliding toward the other like a hand across glass. The line of darkness would mark the turning of the world, a slow, celestial clock sweeping the sky. Even without instruments, you would know the hour by where that shadow rests. From the surface, the light would outshine the full moon's soft yet constant and narrow horizons suspended in the heavens. Sailors would navigate by it, travelers would follow it across deserts, and poets would measure longing against its unbroken glow. We stand together in that imagined dusk, eyes raised to the stillness. Above us is not just stone and dust, but memory geometry, written in airlight stretched into a circle of remembrance. And as our gaze follows the line toward the horizon, the world begins to curve beneath us, reminding us that this ribbon of light does not end. It only bends, wrapping the planet in its quiet symmetry. Beyond this equatorial blade lies another vision how the same ring would appear to those who live farther from the center, where the horizon no longer divides but arches. Now let us journey north to where the perfect symmetry of the equator begins to bow beneath our feet. Imagine standing somewhere near Mexico City, roughly 19 degrees north of the equator. The rain has just ended. The streets still glisten, and the air carries that faint metallic scent that comes only after a storm. Dusk approaches. The sky deepens to a silvery blue, and as the last clouds thin, you look up. The ring is no longer a straight wound across the heavens. It bends a colossal arc of light rising from the southern horizon, climbing almost to the zenith, then descending again toward the west. It is not a rainbow, not vapor or reflection. It is matter, dust, rock, and frozen light tracing the memory of a collision long forgotten. It does not fade when the sun sinks. It remains glowing with a quiet permanence like sunlight trapped inside glass. Far above, within the Roche limit, countless fragments continue to orbit, each perhaps the size of a house or a boulder, yet together scattering enough sunlight to wash the air below in silver. If we could measure the radiance here, it would be close to 130 watts per square meter, a steady luminescence strong enough to tint the dusk itself. Through the day, this reflection changes. At noon, the sky swallows it, its brightness hidden within the greater blaze of the sun. But as twilight deepens, it blooms again, stretching from the south across the heavens in a ribbon of diffuse brilliance. The light softens, edges, blurs shadows, and transforms the world into a perpetual dusk. The human eye built to seek depth might struggle to understand the scale. The ring seems at once near enough to touch and impossibly distant, as if the planet itself had learned to wear infinity like an ornament. You might notice something subtle: the ring always rises higher in the southern sky. That is geometry at work, the consequence of the Earth's axial tilt of 23.5 degrees. Because the ring circles the equator, those in the north must look south to see it. From 40 degrees north, say in New York, the arc would sink lower, becoming a shallow dome whose lower edge hides behind the horizon. Such a view would shape how humanity sees its place. Architects might orient cities toward it. Pilgrims might follow its path. Children would grow up knowing that night is no longer dark but gentle, lit by a permanent twilight that never truly ends. We stand there together beneath that curved horizon of light. Clouds drift across it like smoke over a mirror, and the air hums softly, filled with reflected color. Somewhere beyond vision, billions of stones continue their orbit, each a perfect equation of balance, each whispering that motion itself is the most patient form of stillness. Here near the Arctic Circle, the ring withdraws from the zenith, hiding behind the soft curve of the world. The air is sharp and crystalline. The sun hovers low over the horizon, a pale ember that never climbs high, only glides along the edge of sight. When you turn south, you no longer see the full arc. Only a pale band remains, a faint ribbon of haze suspended above the rim of the sky, luminous and thin as breath. At this latitude, the ring's reflection becomes constant, subtle, unblinking, almost eternal. It never truly sets. Even when the sun vanishes for the long winter, the air still holds a ghost of radiance, a quiet echo of scattered light falling from the ring above. Scientists might call this a permanent twilight, but standing here it feels more like a dream between two kinds of darkness. The snow glows faintly, shadows dissolve, time loses its sharpness. If we could measure the light here, it would rest at about 1/10, the brightness of a full moon, just enough to see your hand before your face, not enough to cast a shadow. The stars would appear softer, as if veiled by silk. The great river of the Milky Way would fade into a faint silver fog, replaced by the diffused glow of the ring. Even the auroras, those green and violet curtains of charged particles, would change character. They would no longer dance across a dark void, but weave through a luminous ceiling already glowing. Their colors would ripple against the pale background like paint on glass, blending rather than burning. You might walk across frozen ground and feel no boundary between earth and sky. The snow mirrors the heavens mirror the snow. Above and below, everything reflects everything else. The world becomes one vast mirror of cold illumination, where every breath feels like a reflection of light. This is the quietest vision of all, a planet that never truly sleeps, its poles caught in a slow exhale of silver. Days and nights lose meaning. Only the rhythm of light remains pulsing gently through air and ice. And as we linger in this half-night, the seasons shift again. The tilt of the planet begins to carry us back toward the equatorial plane, closer to the ring itself, where sunlight, shadow, and motion converge once more. There the balance will change again, and what was eternal dusk will evolve into something far more powerful, the machinery of climate born from the dance of light and orbit. From the twilight of the poles, we drift south again, back into warmth, back into motion. The glow that once softened the Arctic horizon begins to harden into power. The calm halo above the frozen world transforms into an engine. The air stirs, the clouds rise higher, the planet starts to breathe faster, Above us, the ring no longer watches quietly, it acts. It becomes a mirror, a barrier, and a sculptor of climate. The energy of sunlight no longer travels in a straight path. It bounces, refracts, multiplies. Every shift in the planet's tilt becomes amplified. Picture Earth turning slowly beneath it. The axis leans 23.5 degrees, slicing through the plane of the ring. Each hemisphere takes its turn beneath brilliance and beneath shadow. What we once called the steady rhythm of the seasons, spring, summer, autumn, winter, fractures into something sharper. Summers of relentless light, winters of enduring cold. The balance remains, but it is no longer gentle. From orbit, the change would be breathtaking. When one side of the planet faces the sun, its rays strike the ring and scatter back toward the surface. That reflection could add roughly 130 watts per square meter, a constant feedback of heat and radiance. Over the equator, oceans would glimmer like sheets of molten glass. Deserts would shimmer until the air itself seems to tremble. A traveler standing beneath that noonday sky would live under two sources of light, the sun above and the ring's reflection spread like a luminous veil across the heavens. But tilt the Earth away and the same ring becomes a veil of darkness. Its unlit face blocks the sun, casting a wide pale shadow over half the globe. Even at noon, daylight would feel subdued colours, muted air, chilled landscapes washed in grey. The warmth would drain from the soil. Rivers would cool and thicken. Entire coastlines could freeze while faraway deserts bloom briefly under the redirected glare, then fade again into dust. In this world, seasons become drama. The difference in temperature might stretch 10 to 15 degrees Celsius between mirrored and shadowed zones. Forests migrate like tides chasing warmth. Glaciers creep forward and retreat again in rhythm with the planet's tilt. The world no longer turns through mild transitions but swings through great emotional states, heat and stillness, storm and ice. At the equinox, when the sun and ring align, the planet holds its breath. Across the equator stretches a belt of golden dusk that neither brightens nor dims. For weeks, light hangs in balance, creating a horizon that glows as if time itself has paused. These are not seasons as we know them, they are planetary moods. The Earth becomes a pendulum of energy, an organism inhaling and exhaling light. Every brilliance creates its own shadow, every warmth demands its winter. And from this fragile equilibrium, from this mirror of heat and silence, another wonder begins to form, the illusion of a world that shines beneath two suns. From the cycle of extremes, Earth begins to glow with something stranger. What was once the shadow of the ring becomes its reflection, an illusion so powerful it reshapes the very meaning of day. The planet, turning slowly in light, starts to live beneath two suns. Imagine standing beneath the equatorial sky at midsummer. The true sun climbs high, blazing with direct radiance, but the ring above, vast and pale, catches that light and scatters it back down upon the world. The upper atmosphere fills with a second brilliance, softer, diffuse, almost spectral. You stand on an open plain, and the air itself gleams. Your shadow blurs, multiplied by reflection. The ground seems to breathe light. This second sun does not rise or set. It hangs fixed across the heavens, a luminous belt encircling the globe. As Earth rotates, sunlight glances off the ring at shifting angles, sending waves of brightness sweeping across oceans and continents. It is a second dawn that never ends. The effect seems gentle but is immense. That reflection, just 130 watts of energy per square meter, adds up to billions of megawatts poured steadily onto the planet's surface. Over the equatorial belt, the temperature could rise several degrees, clouds would thin, the air would hold more vapor, storms would strengthen, feeding on the constant fuel of light. Deserts would burn under a glare that never fades. Even at night, the horizon would pulse with gold. The world would glow, not with fire, but with memory, sunlight trapped in orbit, endlessly returning home. You can picture it standing in the shadow of a mountain, waiting for dusk, but the sky refuses to darken. The sun slides below the sea, yet the ring burns on a golden scar of illumination stretching from east to west. Trees cast faint shadows at midnight. Rivers mirror a light that has no origin. The Earth seems caught between waking and dreaming, suspended in perpetual afternoon. In such brightness, life itself would shift. Nocturnal creatures would retreat into caverns or dense forests, hiding from the endless glare. Plants might bloom continuously, unable to rest their leaves, curling in exhaustion beneath the ceaseless glow. Even the oceans would transform, shallows heating by day and staying warm by night, birthing new currents, new weather, new chaos. At higher latitudes, the reflection would sink lower in the sky, a silver arc glowing near the southern horizon. Travelers might navigate by it using its angle to tell the hour. In the far north, near the Arctic Circle, it would become a pale band that never rises, never sets, hovering like a frozen memory of daylight. Culturally, this world would orbit light itself. Myths would speak of twin creators, one revealed, one hidden, whose eternal struggle turns the seasons. Temples would align not to the sunrise, but to the moment when both lights meet in perfect harmony. Festivals might bloom on those rare nights when the ring dims, when the heavens finally grow dark enough for stars to return. But beauty carries its own danger. The double illumination would not be kind. The twin sources of heat could push the climate beyond equilibrium. Rain belts might shift by thousands of kilometers. Monsoons could break their cycles. Polar ice would melt faster, refreeze harder, reshaping the balance of the seas. The Earth would live in tension, its reflection locked in quiet conflict with the light it returns. And yet beneath that unending brightness, a truth endures. This is still our Earth, still the same fragile balance of warmth and cold, creation and decay. The ring merely exaggerates what has always been true. Every light creates a shadow and every radiance demands rest. When the second sun fades, when the ring turns its dark face once more, we remember the value of dusk, the tenderness of darkness, the calm of night. But before the shadow returns, one last question lingers in the light. How would life itself adapt to this sleepless, shimmering world? Now the Earth turns again, and the double brilliance fades into geometry. The ring begins to cast its long, patient shadow, an immense soft blade of darkness, gliding across the continents like a sundial written upon the air. Beneath that moving veil, cities wait, each living their own version of night. Imagine Mexico City resting near 19 degrees north. For almost 15 weeks each year, the sun hides behind the inner edge of the ring. The days do not vanish, but they dim. The light becomes copper, the sky subdued, and warmth retreats from the streets. At noon, shadows stretch long and uncertain, as though time itself were hesitant. The temperature drops. Frost gathers on the distant flanks of Popocatépetl and Iztaccíhuatl, and daylight feels fragile like breath upon glass. The people would learn to count the passing days not by sunrise, but by how far the shadow slides across the mountains. Each evening, the light would wane a little earlier until candles and hearths replaced the sun. Night would arrive early and stay. Farther north in New York, the same phenomenon unfolds with a shorter, sharper rhythm. For nearly 8 weeks of winter, the sun's path dips into the ring's obscured band. The light turns blue and metallic, the air hardens. Snow clings to bridges and rooftops unmelted for months. The Hudson River freezes into silence. The city glows faintly in the half-light, its neon signs echoing against the reflection of stone and dust circling the heavens. Here, winter is not merely a season, it is a visitation from the sky itself. At these latitudes, even the rhythm of time begins to shift. Clocks lose authority when dawn and dusk dissolve into the same grey hour. People wake not to light, but to memory. Candles, fires, and window lamps become symbols of defiance. Small suns against the celestial shadow. Farmers would plant and harvest by shadow, not by day, timing their crops with the slow retreat of the darkness. Festivals might bloom in the heart of midwinter, celebrating the faint return of the sun as it glimmers once again through the ring's edge. The faithful might gather to chant beneath the dim sky, watching for the first ray to pierce the veil. Bells would echo through valleys. Fires would burn on mountaintops. Entire cultures could arise from this ritual, the worship of light's endurance. And when spring finally comes, when Earth tilts just enough for the shadow to lift, the first true sunlight would flood the world like revelation. Rivers would thaw with a sound like breathing. Colours once dulled would blaze again on leaves and water. Humanity would step out of the long dusk, reminded of how narrow the boundary truly is between warmth and cold, between life and waiting. Yet beneath its beauty, the ring remains both gift and burden. It teaches patience, it imposes rhythm. Beneath its shadow, cities learn to wait, to adapt, to measure not hours but the pulse of light. They become observers of their own orbit, living in quiet awe of the machinery above. Every window becomes a calendar, every dawn a promise renewed. The ring grants splendor but also humility. For under its moving veil, humankind rediscovers an ancient truth that survival begins not in conquest of the heavens, but in the willingness to endure their shadow. When the shadow finally lifts and sunlight returns to the waiting cities, something profound has changed. The ring has not only sculpted the weather, it has rewritten the tempo of life itself. Every creature, every tree, every cell now beats to a new rhythm carved by light that never sleeps. We emerge from the long winter of reflection into a world that no longer understands darkness. Nights are faintly gold, days are longer than memory. The balance that once guided the living, the gentle alternation between brightness and rest, has been stretched thin, warped by reflection and eclipse. Imagine waking in such a world. At midnight, the horizon still glows a pale shimmer from the ring's scattered light. The body hesitates. The brain seeks its cue for rest, but the signal is lost. Melatonin, the chemical whisper that tells us when to sleep, grows confused. Dreams shorten, drifting in fragments. Minds grow alert when they should surrender. Sleep becomes a kind of art, something learned, not given. Animals fare no better. The nocturnal vanish, burrowing deep into soil or sea. New species rise that can live between light and dark, their eyes shielded with mirrored membranes. Birds no longer migrate by stars, they follow the shifting gleam of the ring. Even the insects change, hatching in rhythms timed to the faint dimming that occurs when Earth's shadow slides across the band above. Plants respond in their own slow language. Endless light means endless labor. Some evolve leaves that fold inward at intervals, creating pockets of artificial night. Others sleep when the ring's shadow passes overhead, blooming again when it fades. In these altered cycles, photosynthesis becomes a heartbeat. Forests sway between wakefulness and rest as if breathing in sync with the sky. Humans too must adapt. We divide the day into fragments, brief intervals of wake and pause. We build houses that mimic darkness, thick walls, shaded domes, windows tinted to amber. Artificial night becomes a precious commodity, a way to protect our minds from exhaustion. And yet amid the confusion, a quiet wisdom appears. Life adjusts. The world learns that survival is not about perfection, but rhythm, the ability to bend with the light and rise again. The ring has become Earth's metronome, dictating the pulse of oceans and minds alike. And from this new rhythm of existence, another transformation stirs, one written not in time, but in form, as evolution begins to sculpt bodies for a sleepless world. The rhythm of light has changed, and with it the architecture of life. Under the reign of the ring, both plant and animal begin to reshape themselves, an evolution not of survival alone, but of design. Every leaf, every wing, every muscle learns to negotiate with the endless day. Imagine walking through a forest beneath that eternal glow. The trees no longer stretch upward as they once did. They spread wide, pressing low against the ground to escape the glare. Their bark thickens, layered like stone to shield the delicate veins beneath. The leaves shine with a dull metallic hue coated with wax to reflect the ceaseless light. In this world, green has turned to silver. Some species learn to fold inward, sleeping in themselves. Their branches coil like closed hands, storing moisture and energy during the brightest hours. Instead of blooming in daylight, they open only when Earth's shadow passes across the ring, sensing the brief dip in temperature. To them, darkness becomes a signal of safety, a moment to breathe. Other plants become opportunists of brilliance. They spread transparent fronds that act like mirrors, scattering sunlight deeper into the forest so that life below can share the burden. Grasses ripple with reflective fibers, turning whole valleys into seas of light. Photosynthesis no longer stops at night. It flows continuously, a slow hum of energy that feeds the planet without pause. Animals too find new forms. Under the twin suns, fur grows pale, feathers gleam white, and scales take on the shimmer of pearl. The creatures of shadow fade or flee, replaced by species shaped for endurance. Thick hides protect against glare and heat. Eyes narrow to slits or grow inward-facing mirrors to manage the overflow of brightness. Imagine herds migrating not with the seasons, but with the moving shadow of the ring. When the Earth tilts, they follow its veil across continents, living within that narrow band where the balance between light and cold feels bearable. The predators learn patience, hunting at the brief moments when twilight crosses the land. Their instincts no longer obey dawn or dusk, they follow the geometry of the sky. Even the oceans evolve. Near the surface, plankton bloom without rest, glowing like constellations scattered across the water. The depths grow calmer, colder, untouched by the ring's reflection, a reminder that some places remain faithful to the ancient rhythm of dark. If the ring were to vanish one day, this world would not know how to sleep. Its forests would remain awake, its animals restless, its cycles uncertain. The biosphere would hum like an overworked engine longing for pause. Yet there is beauty in this adaptation. Every change speaks of resilience of life rewriting its own boundaries. The Earth endures by learning to bend beneath the brightness, by becoming in every leaf and creature a reflection of the ring itself. For all its brilliance, the ring's world does not belong only to oceans or forests. It belongs to us, to the fragile species that builds warmth out of darkness. Humanity must learn again how to live not beneath stars, but beneath the mirrored glow of its own creation. Picture the cities that rise under this eternal light. Towers curve like shells, their roofs made of glass that bends the radiance back to the sky. Windows are tinted to copper, streets shimmer in the pale reflection of the ring. At midnight the sky is not black but pearly white, a slow halo that hums above the horizon. The stars have vanished. The universe feels closer yet somehow less infinite. In this endless day we would measure time differently. Sleep would come in fragments, short intervals stolen between waves of heat. Work would follow temperature, not hours. Clocks would lose authority. Calendars would blur. Families might read the tone of the sky instead of numbers: gold for morning, silver for rest, amber for thought. Darkness becomes a luxury, a substance crafted by human hands. Our homes would imitate night. Curtains woven with layers of dark fiber rooms cooled by flowing air. Beneath them, we would learn to dream again. Temples would not worship the light but the shadow that interrupts it. Festivals would bloom when the Earth's shadow slides across the ring, weeks of celebration for the soft return of dimness. Emotion too would change. The unending brightness might leave us restless, searching for mystery, for the forgotten comfort of invisibility. Art would move inward, paintings of silence, music shaped like dusk. And yet beneath this sleepless sky humanity would endure. We would build rest and dream beneath our own reflection, learning that balance is not found in darkness or light, but in the fragile space between them, where the world and the heart finally exhale. When the long experiment of life beneath the ring settles into rhythm, the human story begins to change. What once shaped the body now reshapes the mind. From the endless brightness and shadow myth begins to rise slowly like mist from the horizon. We step now from the world of adaptation into the realm of meaning. The ring that once ruled the tides and seasons becomes a silent scripture in the sky, a story written in light. Every latitude reads it differently, translating reflection into faith. Along the equator, the ring stands like a flawless line overhead, dividing heaven into twin halves. To those who live there, it is the bridge of creation, the path between the mortal and the divine. Temples open toward the zenith, perfectly aligned so the ring passes through their center. Each year when Earth's shadow moves across it, people gather in silence, believing the two worlds, the seen and unseen, are touching. Priests record the shadow's motion on stone walls, turning astronomy into ritual. Farther north in the temperate belts, the ring tilts and softens into a glowing arch. Here it becomes the bow of the sky, a symbol of balance. Their myths tell of twin deities, one of fire, one of frost, chasing each other along the curve. Summer belongs to the god of reflection, whose light feeds the harvest. Winter to the god of stillness, whose darkness restores the earth. The cycle of seasons becomes divine pursuit. At the polar edges where the ring fades into twilight, stories grow quieter. The people there call it the memory of the sun, the trace of ancient fire left after creation's storm. For them, darkness is holy because it reveals what light cannot show. They do not worship the ring, but the silence between its glimmers. Every culture, every latitude reads the same phenomenon and writes its own truth. The ring unites them not by belief, but by awe. It becomes the shared horizon of myth, proof that even under the same sky, humanity will always look up and see something different. And from those myths a question will rise. What if the light is not a god at all, but a law waiting to be understood? As the myths matured, faith began to harden into geometry. Humanity learned to trace devotion in stone. The ring above, once a mystery, then a god, became a guide. Its motion turned into a measure, its symmetry into architecture. Across centuries, temples rose not just for worship, but for observation. Every culture at every latitude shaped its monuments around the same celestial ribbon. Where the stars once ruled navigation, now the ring defined the heavens. It became the first great clock, the backbone of time itself. At the equator, temples opened like eyes to the zenith. Their courtyards were carved to frame the ring precisely overhead. Columns cast shadows that moved in rhythm with its slow passage. Each crossing of Earth's shadow marked the beginning of a new season. Priests studied the changing brightness, noting how the reflected light softened near solstice and sharpened near equinox. What began as ritual became record. In the temperate zones, architects learned to follow the curve. Vast stone avenues angled toward the ring's highest point at midsummer, when the double suns, the real and the reflected, met in perfect alignment. When that beam of light entered the temple's inner corridors, it struck a polished slab of crystal or bronze igniting chambers built to catch it. To stand within that glow was to witness the dialogue between heaven and earth. Even in the polar regions, where the ring glowed faintly through twilight, humans built observatories into the ice itself. Their mirrored surfaces caught the pale arc and traced its slow wander across the seasons. In the silence of that frozen world, geometry replaced prayer. These structures were more than monuments. They were equations made visible stone translations of cosmic order. Each pillar, each corridor, each measured angle declared that light could be understood, not just revered. Through architecture, humanity found its first bridge between awe and reason. The temples of the ring were not built to reach the sky, but to remind us that the sky could be read. And from those readings, from that devotion turned to discipline, a new kind of faith was born, the faith in knowledge itself. As the architecture of the ring filled the world with stone and shadow, a subtler structure began to take shape, one not of pillars or equations, but of belief. For every temple that measured the heavens, there was a priest who sought meaning within them. From those interpretations, astrology was born. The ring became the dominant symbol of fate. Where once the constellations guided omens, now humanity read the slow shimmer of the band itself. Its brightness, its fractures, its faint variations became the handwriting of destiny. When the ring glowed with unusual brilliance, kings declared new eras. When it dimmed, prophecies warned of drought, disease, or war. The sky had become a vast calendar of consequence. At the equator, where the ring split the heavens cleanly in two, astrologers divided humanity itself, those born under the upper light destined for vision and leadership, and those born beneath the lower arc, children of patience and endurance. Entire philosophies emerged from this geometry of light. In the northern and southern realms, the tilted ring inspired dual pantheons. One god ruled reflection, the radiant, merciful source of creation. The other ruled shadow, the keeper of silence, wisdom, and endings. Their tension explained the rhythm of life and death, summer and winter, birth and decline. Temples were arranged so that at certain times sunlight and ring light met upon the altar, symbolizing the reconciliation of opposites. At the polar circles, faith took a quieter form. People there believed the ring was the memory of an ancient covenant, the trace of fire that once bound heaven and earth. They did not fear its dimming. They celebrated it, believing that in darkness truth becomes visible. In all these faiths, the ring was both instrument and metaphor, an ever-present reminder that the universe was alive with pattern and that human fate moved within those same orbits. But in seeking meaning, people also began to notice consistency. Prophecies gave way to prediction to measurement. Slowly, reverence turned to curiosity. And from curiosity, a new discipline was born: science, the quiet successor of belief built upon the same longing to understand the light. From faith rose observation, and from observation understanding. What once shimmered as myth began to settle into method. The same eyes that sought prophecy in the sky now traced its patterns with precision. Humanity had discovered something greater than belief consistency. The ring no longer spoke in riddles. It marked the hours, the seasons, the direction of travel. It had become a silent, eternal clock, a compass written in light. Through it, the sky gained structure, and the earth gained rhythm. At the equator, where the ring cuts the heavens like a blade of brightness, orientation was effortless. Travelers did not need stars. They followed the ring's intersection with the horizon, true east and west, drawn in pure geometry. Caravans crossed deserts guided by that luminous line, their shadows stretching toward their destinations. Sailors watching from the deck of wooden ships measured the ring's height above the horizon to determine their latitude centuries before compasses or sextants were born. The sea itself became an extension of the sky. In the temperate zones, time was written in shadow. Farmers built tall obelisks whose tips caught the glow of the ring each day at the same hour. The changing length of those shadows marked the passing months, transforming reflection into calendar. Every tilt of light meant harvest or rest, flood or frost. The heavens had become a farmer's almanac carved in motion. Farther north near the polar circles, the ring hovered low and constant, circling the horizon like a silver belt. It never rose, never fell, only shifted in color from gold to blue as the sun dipped beneath it. Their direction dissolved, but time remained measured not by movement, but by hue. People learned to read the day in gradients, the slow breathing of light, and so the ring that had once inspired prayer became the foundation of reason. From its curve, humanity learned orientation. From its rhythm, the meaning of duration. The gods had not vanished, they had simply become equations, and through that quiet revelation, we stepped into a new epoch, one where knowledge replaced worship and light itself became our teacher. Every gift carries its contradiction. The same ring that once guided travelers mark the seasons and inspired faith would one day become the astronomer's burden. It was no longer only a compass, it had become a veil of light obscuring the deeper universe behind its beauty. The night sky, once black and infinite, now shimmered with pale reflection. For those who studied the stars that glow was both magnificent and merciless. The ring scattered sunlight across every longitude, erasing the clarity that ancient stargazers had once known. The heavens glowed like dawn even at midnight, and the edge of space, our window to infinity, grew faint. At the equator, the glow was overwhelming. The ring hung directly overhead, bright as 1,000 full moons. Constellations vanished, drowned in the sea of reflection. Astronomers built their instruments deep in mountain craters, where shadows still clung to the earth. Even there, the light persisted, a constant whisper of photons from billions of drifting fragments circling 15,000 kilometers above. In the temperate latitudes, scientists learned to adapt. They studied the ring's structure itself, how its light flickered when stars passed behind it, creating natural eclipses. By measuring those interruptions, they could calculate orbital speeds, particle sizes, even mass distributions. The obstacle became an instrument. Every interference revealed a secret. Farther north, beneath the polar arcs, the ring was dimmer yet stranger. It refracted sunlight through layers of cold air, splitting into bands of color, red at dawn, indigo by dusk. The auroras wound themselves around it, making the sky a tapestry of motion. But the beauty brought confusion, what was reflection, and what was cosmic. The boundaries blurred. Some scholars called it the astronomer's curse, a paradise too luminous for discovery. Yet others saw it as evolution itself, the universe demanding sharper eyes, cleaner instruments, deeper patience. Through difficulty, we learned refinement. In time, our telescopes grew wiser. They looked not through the ring, but beyond it into wavelengths the human eye could not see. The veil forced innovation, and innovation expanded vision. Perhaps that is the paradox of light. The brighter the guide, the more carefully one must learn to see. From the struggle to see beyond the ring came a new ambition to cross it. Humanity, once content to watch the heavens, began to dream of leaving Earth entirely. What began as a myth, then a compass, and later an obstacle, now became a challenge, a frontier drawn across the sky. Engineers and astronomers imagined the impossible, a journey through the shimmering belt that circled their planet. At first, it seemed simple. The ring floated only 15,000 kilometers above the surface, barely a tenth of the distance to the moon. Yet its beauty concealed peril. Billions of stones, some no larger than grains of sand, others the size of cathedrals, moved at orbital speeds exceeding 7 kilometers per second. To pass through that storm of debris was to fly through a continuous invisible bombardment. At the equator, launch sites were built directly beneath the densest arc, where orbital velocity offered efficiency but demanded precision. Rockets would rise through columns of atmosphere guided by radar arrays designed to find gaps between clusters of fragments. Some succeeded, reaching the void beyond emerging into a ringlit cosmos. Others did not, shattered before ever leaving the cradle of Earth. In the higher latitudes, missions took safer but longer routes, ascending along polar trajectories to skirt the ring's outer edge. It was there that the first human-made satellites found sanctuary, circling above the chaos. The ring shone beneath them like an illuminated map, a reminder that even progress must respect geometry. Scientists speculated that over time, fragments would thin, gradually pulled into Earth's gravity, or scattered by lunar tides. If humanity waited long enough, the path to the stars would clear. But waiting was not in our nature. Instead, we learned to adapt once more, creating shielded hulls, electromagnetic deflectors, and guided corridors through the densest regions. The same ingenuity that once measured light now carved safe passage through it. And so the ring that once defined orientation became a threshold. To cross it was to cross the boundary between home and cosmos, between knowing and becoming. Every civilization must build its own barrier of light only to learn in time how to fly beyond it. From the age of ascent, when rockets began to climb through the air and pierce the bright boundary of our ring, we thought the sky had finally become ours. We had charted its geometry, measured its light, and crossed its boundary. Yet as we rose higher, we met again the ancient force that had shaped us since the beginning, the pull of the moon. The moon is more than a companion. It is a regulator, a quiet master of tides and tilt. Its gravity keeps Earth's rotation steady, its axis poised. But it also interferes, tugging at every fragment of debris, every orbiting machine that hums above our heads. As we built our artificial rings, thousands of satellites drifting metal shells, shards of forgotten missions, the moon began to tug upon them all as if testing the patience of our design. Scientists know this force intimately. The moon's orbital plane is tilted 5 degrees from Earth's equator, the very plane where a natural ring would lie. That slight misalignment multiplied over millennia can tear stability apart. It may be the reason Earth's original ring, if it ever existed, was slowly dismantled, its fragments drawn into the gravity of the planet or cast adrift into space. Today, that same imbalance still plays out. Every 27 days, as the moon completes its orbit, its pull stretches and compresses the paths of our satellites. Some drift closer, some spiral outward. Thrusters must fire to restore balance. Without correction, entire orbital layers could collapse into a storm of debris, a modern echo of a cosmic past. And yet there is something humbling in this rhythm. Even after centuries of reaching upward, the moon still dictates our boundaries. It reminds us that gravity is not an enemy, but a language one written long before we learned to read the sky. Perhaps the moon is both sculptor and keeper, ensuring that no ring, natural or man-made, can last forever. What we build in the heavens will always fall back to the sea, returning like the tide to where it began. But the moon is not the only sculptor of our sky. The force beneath our feet, Earth's own gravity, is neither smooth nor uniform. It is uneven, rippled and restless, shaped by mountains, oceans and the molten currents deep within. To the naked eye, Earth seems round and stable. To a satellite, it is a shifting field of invisible hills and valleys. Scientists call it the geoid, the true shape of Earth's gravity. If you could drain the oceans and pour an imaginary sea across the planet, this surface would rise and dip like breathing skin, sometimes by as much as 100 meters. Over these subtle variations, everything in orbit must find its balance. When natural rings once circled the Earth, if they ever truly did this, uneven gravity would have disturbed them. Each region of higher mass, each gravitational bulge would pull the ring material slightly off course. Over thousands of orbits, those minute tugs could twist the ring into spirals, clumps and waves until cohesion was lost. Now our artificial rings face the same challenge. Thousands of satellites trace what appear to be perfect circles, yet every one of them constantly adjusts for Earth's imperfections. The densest parts of the planet's crust beneath the Himalayas, the Andes or the Pacific trenches, pull just a little harder, distorting orbits by kilometers over time. The adjustments are small, measured in bursts of a few meters per second, but relentless. To engineers, these are corrections. To philosophers, they are reminders. Perfection in nature is always approximate. The same planet that nurtures us also resists symmetry. Even in orbit, the fingerprints of mountains and oceans reach upward, sculpting paths we cannot see. Some scientists speculate that if Earth had been perfectly spherical, its mass flawlessly distributed, our ancient ring might still circle above us. Instead, the world's uneven heart ensured that chaos triumphed over geometry, and yet perhaps that imperfection is grace itself. Without it, tides would not dance, seasons would not shift, and life might never have learned to adapt. The warp of gravity, like the pulse of time, is what keeps the universe alive. The moon tugs, the Earth warps. Together they begin the slow erasure. What once circled in beauty, rings of dust, of metal, of human ambition, starts to unravel. No catastrophe, no explosion. Just time, gravity, and quiet decay. Satellites drift from alignment. Their orbits intersect. A collision here, a splinter there. Each fragment becomes another threat, striking at 28,000 kilometers per hour, multiplying into storms of debris. Astronomers call it the Kessler Cascade, a chain reaction where every impact breeds 10 more. Within decades, the artificial ring that once gleamed above the equator turns opaque, dangerous, unsustainable. Eventually, atmospheric drag and lunar pull claim what remains. The smallest shards burn like fleeting meteors. The larger husks tumble lower, streaking through dawn as fiery arcs. They fall into oceans, deserts, mountains, the Earth reclaiming what once tried to escape her gravity. And the sky grows darker again. Where once there was a belt of reflected light, there is now only silence. The stars return untouched and innumerable. Humanity looks upward and sees for the first time in centuries the raw night, the Milky Way spread across blackness without interference. Perhaps this is how all stories end, not with collapse but with release. The ring fades, the noise quiets, and the universe exhales. For every creation that rises, gravity writes the final line, pulling it home into stillness. When the final shimmer of the ring faded and the heavens cleared once more, humanity looked upward, not in triumph, but in wonder. After so much creation and collapse, one question remained. Why doesn't Earth have a ring? Why are we the one blue world whose sky is bare? The answer lies deep in history and forces both violent and patient. Around 4.5 billion years ago, Earth was struck by a body roughly the size of Mars, an event we now call the Theia collision. The impact hurled molten rock and dust into orbit, forming a glowing disk that encircled the planet like fire. For a while, Earth did have rings, vast, incandescent, visible even from the surface of its boiling seas. But the fragments did not stay separate. Gravity, that quiet sculptor, began to pull them together. Within a few thousand years, those pieces gathered into a single companion, the Moon. From that moment, our fate changed. The Moon became both guardian and thief. Its gravitational pull, tilted 5 degrees from Earth's equator, slowly destroys any attempt at forming new rings. It lifts and lowers debris, forcing it to collide and scatter. What remains burns in the atmosphere, falls to Earth, or escapes to the void. Even the shape of our planet conspires against perfection. Earth is not an even sphere, but a bulging, restless mass. Mountains, ocean trenches, and shifting magma create an uneven gravitational field, a warped geometry that shakes apart long-lived structures. A ring here would twist, fragment, and vanish into streaks of light within millennia. And perhaps that's how it should be. The absence of rings is the price of stability of oceans and seasons of life that breathes and evolves. A world adorned forever in dust would be a colder, quieter one, beautiful but barren. We do not have rings because we have balance, because we have water atmosphere motion, because we are not frozen in perfection. The sky above us is empty by design so that our eyes may see farther than any halo could allow. The sky remains bare, a clean, unbroken sphere of blue by day, of black by night. Where a ring might have shimmered, there is only space. And in that emptiness, meaning begins to form. Absence itself becomes a kind of presence. When we look at Saturn, we see permanence, order, the illusion of calm. But when we look at Earth, we see movement, impermanence, and possibility. Our planet refuses decoration because it refuses stillness. Its lack of rings is not an omission. It is a declaration that beauty can exist without ornament, that grace can arise from motion. Astronomers describe this as negative evidence, the knowledge of what must be true because something is missing. Earth's bare sky tells us of warmth, of tides, of rotation. It tells us that our planet is restless enough to erase its own symmetry. A ring would demand constancy. Life demands change. Imagine standing beneath that clear vault on a windless night. The stars are sharp, countless, infinite. There are no bands to divide them, no haze to blur their edges. Every constellation breathes freely. You begin to understand why silence matters, why the absence of glow is the condition for vision. Without emptiness, there is no perspective. Philosophers might say the missing ring is our first mirror. It reflects what we are transient searching, always unfinished. It reminds us that the universe does not exist to please the eye, but to awaken the mind. In art, in science, in life, absence creates form. The pause gives rhythm. The space between notes carries the melody. In the same way, our sky, unadorned, unbounded, allows thought to travel further than any visible ring could. So when you gaze upward and see nothing circling above, know this: the void is not empty. It is invitation. It is the measure of everything still waiting to be known. The universe leaves us this silence not as loss, but as permission to wonder, to question, to dream into the space where light does not reach. And yet perhaps Earth does wear a ring, just not one born of ice or stone. Look closer beyond the thin veil of atmosphere and you'll find a metallic halo gliding silently above the planet. Thousands of satellites, fragments, and forgotten relics now orbit together, forming what scientists call the geosynchronous belt, our own artificial ring. It began innocently with a single signal. In 1957, a polished sphere no larger than a beach ball rose from the steppes of Kazakhstan. Its name was Sputnik. It circled the planet every 96 minutes, broadcasting a simple pulse, a heartbeat of metal that whispered, "We are here." That sound was more than data. It was a declaration. From that first signal, an entire civilization began to climb into the sky. Telstar followed, then Voyager, Hubble Landsat, and thousands more, each carrying messages, eyes, instruments, and hope. They mapped weather-connected voices, watched continents shift, and measured the faint glow of distant galaxies. Humanity had built an exoskeleton of knowledge layer by layer until the night itself hummed with information. Now more than 4,000 active satellites circle Earth. Around them, millions of smaller fragments drift in chaotic orbits. Bolts, solar panels, discarded rocket casings, flecks of paint, even lost tools from spacewalks. Each one moves faster than a bullet, over 27,000 kilometers per hour, a silent storm of progress circling 35,000 kilometers above the equator. From afar, perhaps from another star, this ring might shimmer faintly, a thin silver band of reflection encircling a blue world. Astronomers on a distant exoplanet might one day detect it and wonder who built this, who loved their world enough to crown it with light. And yet this ring is fragile. It was never meant to last. Solar radiation pressure, atmospheric drag, and magnetic storms slowly nudge every orbit, bending paths, thickening clouds of debris. Collisions are inevitable. One strike creates thousands of shards, each with the power to destroy another. The Kessler cascade, a chain reaction of impacts, already looms as a quiet threat. What we built to connect our world could one day sever it completely. In this artificial ring lies a paradox as human as breath. It is both creation and warning, symbol and scar, a reflection of the same instinct that once shaped tools from stone and lit fires in caves now extended into orbit. It is beauty and danger intertwined, a man-made constellation of purpose and neglect. At night, astronauts aboard the International Space Station sometimes glimpse this belt as a faint gleam at the edge of Earth's shadow. They describe it as a ghost light, a veil of civilization. Each glint could be a satellite transmitting weather data, guiding ships across oceans, or streaming a voice across continents. From above, the ring is not chaos, it is choreography, every motion precise, every orbit sustained by equations written on chalkboards decades ago. But below on the ground, most of us never see it. The artificial ring hides from human eyes, invisible to all but radar and telescope. It is our unseen monument, a reminder that even in our silence we are always broadcasting. The planet hums a web of radio and laser signals passing endlessly overhead, mapping, measuring, remembering. And still there is wonder in it. The ring we made mirrors our own nature, creative, reckless, luminous. It proves that Earth's story is no longer only geological or biological. It has become technological. A single species learned to build a ring of purpose where once there was only sky. Perhaps far in the future, this belt will evolve again, not into chaos, but into architecture. Satellites may align into vast mirrors that redirect sunlight, or swarms that harvest energy for colonies beyond Earth. Our artificial ring could become the seed of a Dyson shell, the first shimmer of a civilization learning to sculpt starlight itself. But that is speculation. For now, the truth is quieter. Each year, more satellites fall burning in streaks of orange fire. They become meteors of memory, letters of light written briefly across dawn. The artificial ring thins, frays, reforms. It is alive in the way all human things are alive, temporary, hopeful, destined to return to dust. And one day, when the last piece falls, when the final relic burns into the atmosphere like a man-made aurora, the sky will clear again. The stars will reclaim their ancient silence. From below, the world will look up and see nothing but open space. But in that emptiness there will be peace, because every orbit that decayed, every signal that faded, was proof that we once reached outward, that we once circled our own world in light. The ring will vanish, but its echo will remain in the radio whispers, still traveling between the stars in the memory of a species that refused to stay bound to the ground. And when dawn comes again, and the atmosphere glows blue, Earth will still shine, complete, unadorned, and free. The story circles back. Rings to dust, light to silence, motion to rest. The sky above us is empty again, quiet, bare breathing. What was once a crown of light has dissolved into memory. The fragments are gone, but their echo lingers in the stillness between stars. We have imagined so many versions of Earth crowned like Saturn, wrapped in brilliance, radiant and adorned. But our world chose another path. It chose to stay open, to keep its horizon uncluttered, to let us see through. The absence is not a flaw. It is the condition for vision. Without it, we would never have seen beyond ourselves. Look upward now. There are no rings, no arcs of dust, only space, the pure geometry of possibility. Through that vastness drift the quiet reminders of all we've made, fading satellites, glimmers of forgotten metal falling back to the sea. They burn like tiny thoughts, release their trails, vanishing into the dark. Maybe this was always the design. The universe gives us beauty only long enough to teach us how to let go. Then it takes it back so that wonder can begin again. The moon still turns, the tides still breathe, the planet hums softly beneath your feet, and above it all the sky listens, not speaking, not answering, only waiting for the next question to rise. In that waiting there is peace, in that silence the shape of eternity. So when you look up tonight and see nothing circling above, remember this emptiness is not absence, it is permission. It is the opened space through which every dream can travel. Breathe. The light has not vanished, it has only spread too far to see. The rings were never lost, they were only lessons scattered among the stars. The universe vast and patient, and close your eyes.